Hello and welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys have enjoyed this weekend's full jam-packed schedule of games on Saturday and today. This is going to be taking a look at the nation and our Week 14 recap. Well, actually, we're not going to do the recap. You guys know what happened if you watch the videos. So we're going to just take a look at the nation, check out all the conferences, players of the week, bowl rankings, top 25, Heisman watch, all that good stuff. Bowl rankings, Fresno State actually gets jumped by Savannah State in the bowl rankings. Or was Savannah State number 1 last week? I can't remember, but they're number 1 right now. And Fresno State, Central Michigan, Rice, and UTEP round out the top 5. Bryant, 6th. New Mexico State, Akron, William and Mary, the Tribe, and Ball State round out the top 10. Navy, Dayton, South Dakota State, Tulane, and Montana. That is the complete bowl rankings. Let's take a look at the top 25. With a better than expected defense, the Aggies climb to the number 7 spot. And that is, of course, New Mexico State. Savannah State was ranked first last week. The top 3 do not change. Bryant does move up. They jump up over Rice, who just beat the Phoenix 29-16. And nothing really changed at all in the top 10 except for Rice falling behind Bryant. The rest of it remains the same. And that's the only thing that has changed so far in the top 25, which is very surprising to only see. Oh, here's another movement right now. Tulane moves up, and so does Wyoming. And UNLV moves up a spot. Everybody's moving up a spot here, so somebody lost. Tennessee State up to 18th. They will be taking on the Jacksonville Dolphins in the SEC Championship game after Week 15. Eastern Michigan, San Diego State, Ohio. They just beat New Hampshire 23-14. New Mexico, Boise State, and Cal Poly in the rankings for the first time this year at 24. And Hawaii is the final team here in our top 25. Indiana State, North Dakota State, San Diego, Nicholas State, Sam Houston State, and Yale all receiving votes. The only 2 teams that dropped out were James Madison and South Carolina State out of the rankings. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Heisman watch list. You know MJ Gator Jr. is going to be at the top. Brandon Allen is going to be right there behind him. And that is the case. Lamar Jackson jumps up to 4th on the Heisman watch list. Very impressive year from him as well. But MJ Gator Jr. just phenomenal. 38 total touchdowns and 2,700 yards total. Brandon Allen, almost 2,000 rushing yards. He's got 36 touchdowns on the season heading into Week 15. Dallas Cole, 47 touchdown passes. If MJ and Brandon Allen weren't so impressive this season, I would give it to Dallas Cole, because he's about to throw for 50 touchdowns this year. Insane numbers. Lamar Jackson closing in on 1,000 rushing yards to go along with 3,030 passing yards. Jordan Atkins, of course, having a phenomenal season as well. Almost 4,000 yards passing and 44 touchdowns. But a very not impressive game last week against San Diego State. Let's take a look. We're not going to look at the awards finalists. We're just going to wait until we see winners, and then we'll get into that. But Lozano III from Cal Poly is on the cover of that. He leads for the Maxwell Award. So, very good season from him. I've compared him to Marshall Faulk, just the way he catches the ball out of the backfield. He's just a very similar player to me. And here he is on another cover. Time to put up, see where the Mustangs might be heading this postseason. Let's take a look at the bowl projections. And of course, just like last week, we are going to ignore the teams that have losing records, because I've seen into the future, and they don't make the bowl games. The game actually fixes itself and does not allow these teams to make it in. So don't really put any stock into that. UTEP 10-1 on the season, number 6 in the country, and they'll be taking on VMI here in Week 15. That's going to be a huge game. Ball State 9-2, Jacksonville State 7-5. They'll be in the bowl game, probably the Fort Worth Bowl, most likely. Southern Utah is bowl eligible. UNLV on their 6-game winning streak is bowl eligible. Hawaii versus Tulane, that would be a good game. The WAC and Conference USA, of course, 2 of the conferences that have the most talent on their rosters. New Mexico State versus Howard. That's not going to happen. But whoever New Mexico State faces, they're probably going to throttle. And this game, of course, will not happen either. Because 3-8, that's just not going to cut it. Neither is 4-7 Jackson State. Sam Houston State is ranked, or not ranked, excuse me. They do have a winning record, so they'll be in there. And Harvard, they will not make it either. Northern Colorado is bowl eligible at 6-6 and currently 4th in the Pac-10. And Nicholls State, they'll be in a bowl game. Youngstown State will not be. Florida A&M will make a bowl game. Dartmouth will not at 5-6. Furman will be in there. Another Big 12 school. Colorado State versus Portland State. The Vikings, they have definitely earned a bowl game this season. A lot of great wins over some good teams. But I do think if they face Colorado State, that's not even going to be a close matchup. Holiday Bowl, San Diego at North Dakota State. Music City Bowl, Alabama A&M, Southern Illinois. And UC Davis versus Western Illinois. I don't think that's going to happen either because the Leathernecks, they're 5-6. And that does not cut it. New Mexico versus Rice, a very intriguing matchup. New Mexico almost put up 100 points earlier in the season against Southern Utah. And Rice, of course, has a very elusive dual-threat quarterback in Howell. Alcorn State, that's not going to happen. I wish it would because they have some great talent on that roster. They just had some unfortunate losses. Grambling State versus Indiana State, that would be a good game. And Southern versus VMI. I don't think so, bud. Princeton versus William and Mary. The Tribe, I think, will beat anyone that they face out of all the other FCS schools. Capital One Bowl, Jacksonville versus Montana. Now, if Jacksonville wins against Tennessee State in their rematch for the SEC Championship, they will be taking on Cal Poly, who won the Pac-10. And Tennessee State would most likely be in that Capital One Bowl. And the Sugar Bowl, that's going to be a great game. Whoever Cal Poly has to face, that's going to be a great game. Fiesta Bowl, Yale versus South Dakota State. It's either going to be the Jackrabbits or VMI, whoever wins the Big 12. And the Orange Bowl, Dayton versus Bryant. It'll be either Dayton versus Bryant or Savannah State. Fresno State is in the national championship game. That's going to happen. So the winner of the ACC championship game is most likely going to go on and take on the Fresno State Bulldogs. Let's take a look at the players of the week. Tate Campbell, 239 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, and 59 yards receiving in 1 score. Nate Brashers, middle linebacker for New Mexico State, 3 tackles, 2 for loss, 1 sack, interception, and a touchdown, and a huge win over Utah State. Ted Miller, redshirt senior halfback for Florida A&M, ran for 123 yards and had 3 scores. Tim Russell, 8 tackles, 4 for loss, 2 sacks for Morgan State in their win over South Carolina State. That's an impressive win, and only Morgan State's 2nd victory of the season. So, great way for them to end the year. Obviously, a very disappointing season for the Bears. The Big Ten, Jonathan Oliver, redshirt senior halfback, had, 110 total yards and 1 touchdown. Not very impressive in a loss to Hawaii. Marcus Smith, redshirt sophomore middle linebacker, had 11 tackles, 3 for loss, 1 sack, and a forced fumble. 49-16 drubbing by hand of the Hawaii Warriors. The Big 12, Lamar Jackson, 270 yards passing on 11 completions, 135 yards rushing, 5 total touchdowns. And Brett Fowler, middle linebacker on that defense, 7 tackles, interception, and 2 forced fumbles in the 56-34 win over Furman. Big East, Reggie Kennedy, senior quarterback, 381 yards, 5 touchdowns at Cornell in a 38-24 win. Jonathan Jenkins, their sophomore outside linebacker, had himself a day as well. Conference USA, Jesse Powers, 236 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns in a win over Delaware. Mark Glasper for Jacksonville State, 10 tackles, 3 for a loss, 1 sack, and a forced fumble in a win over James Madison. Independence, Mark Williamson, one of the top receivers in the land, 9 catches, 112 yards, 3 scores. And on defense, Lamar Johnson, 1 tackle and an interception in a loss to Portland State. On to the MAC. Tate Campbell, we already saw him. Crazy game from him, 5 touchdowns. And on defense, UMass defensive end Preston Silva, 8 tackles, 4 for loss, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble in a 24-17 victory over the Hofstra Pride. And that was UMass's only win of the season so they avoid going winless. Crazy. On to the Pac-10, Raul Lozano III, 197 yards, rushing, 3 touchdowns, 2 catches, 16 yards. So over 200 yards of offense for him. Very good day for the halfback. And Marcus Ricks, 2 tackles, 2 picks, and a touchdown in that game against Cal Poly, where they lost 49-42. On to the SEC, Mr. Highlight against Alabama State in the 80-21 win. 429 all-purpose yards, 3 total touchdowns, and of course that crazy punt return that was called back. Sun Belt, Kyle Parker, redshirt freshman quarterback, 135 yards passing, 192 yards on the ground, 4 total touchdowns. On defense, safety for FIU, Ryan Gonzalez, 3 tackles and a pick 6 in a 28-23 win over FAU. That means the Golden Panthers are your Sun Belt champs. On to the WAC, Blake Hayden, 162 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches, 35 yards, and a score in a 38-24 win over Nevada, sealing the national championship trip for the Fresno State Bulldogs. Take a look at the conference. A couple undefeated teams here in the ACC. Bryant, of course, one more test on the year. They'll be taking on the North Dakota State Bison next week, week 15. Now on to the Big Ten. Dayton, of course, already won that conference. The Big 12 is going to be South Dakota State versus VMI. I'm really looking forward to that game. Lamar Jackson versus Justin Hobbs. And Daley Redding versus Cam Sanders. Cam Sanders has been absolutely fantastic since he came back from suspension. And the Big East could either be won by Yale, Princeton, or Harvard here. So crazy finish. I do think Yale has won it because all of their games have been played. It's so weird seeing most of these teams have 11 games played. And I can't really do anything to fix that, unfortunately. But it looks like Yale has won it after being 2-4. They finished with 5 straight wins. Conference USA, Rice and UTEP. It's going to be Jacksonville State in the Conference USA championship game because they just defeated James Madison. And they'll be taking on the Rice Owls. I got Rice winning that one in a landslide. They are just too nasty with that option attack on offense. James Madison, of course, had a great season. They will get a bowl game. So nothing to really hang their head at, Pretty good year for them. Towson also goes 7-4. They'll get a bowl game. Navy and Army get a bowl game. Navy just beat Army 7-6, I believe. So, good game for them. They win the Commander-in-Chief trophy this year. On to the MAC. Central Michigan and Akron at the top of that. Both 10-win teams. And Ohio and Ball State, both 6-2 in conference, along with Akron, actually. But it is going to be Akron in the MAC championship game, taking on the Central Michigan Chippewas. And I think the Central Michigan Chippewas will win that one. New Mexico has won the Midwest Conference. UNLV, an impressive finish to the season, but just not enough to claim the title. The Pac-10, Cal Poly won that one. San Diego was second. UC Davis, Northern Colorado, Southern Utah. All of these teams have played all of their conference games. And their seasons are completed except for San Diego, who will be taking on Sacramento State here in week 15 coming up. But everybody else gets a bowl game. Portland State makes a bowl game. So 6 of the 10 schools in the Pac-10 had a pretty good season. Of course, the SEC will be Tennessee State taking on Jacksonville. And their only conference loss, the Dolphins that is, was to the Tennessee State Tigers. So that's going to be a great matchup. A little bit of a rivalry starting now. And I can't wait for that game to happen. The Sun Belt, of course, FIU has won that as they just beat Florida Atlantic. And Georgia Southern just beat Samford. So they will get number 2 in the Sun Belt. Well, that's it for the Sun Belt. Let's go ahead and take a look at the final conference. And that is going to be the WAC. We already know that Fresno State just won their last game. They beat Nevada 38-24. And they're going to be in the national championship game. The only question that remains is, will it be against Savannah State? Or will it be against the Bryant Bulldogs? And I cannot wait for that ACC championship game. Of course, the Bulldogs could lose this week coming up to the Bison, but I don't see it happening. Their offense has really been struggling, and I don't see them doing a whole lot against Bryant's nasty defense. But my prediction is we are going to see Brandon Allen or MJ Gator Jr. hoist the Heisman Trophy, and one of them will also be in the national championship game taking on Fresno State. But that's it for taking a look at the nation, guys. I'll see you guys within the week with more games. Take it easy, guys.